Welcome back, Marilyn.
Welcome. Thank you.
So lovely to have you back again. How have you been?
I think, like everyone, I'm trying to hold back the burnout and just be sustainably angry.
Yeah. Well, I was looking at the story today. It's both quite a big story and quite a weird story. And I thought we should talk to someone who knows a bit more about the region, a bit more about the politics in the world, who follows it, who's been involved from living in Gaza. And we'd get you on to have a bit of a chat about it. So I thought what we'd do to start off with, I've got the one news story. It's only 2.5 minutes, but that might kind of give us a foundation for continued conversation. So why don't we watch that first of all, and then we'll get into the conversation. Cool as?
Yeah.
Cool as. Here we go.
Has imposed travel bans on 2 far-right ministers in Israel's government, accusing them of inciting violence against Palestinians. But the move, made in conjunction with 4 other countries, has been slammed by both Israel and the United States. Senior political reporter Benedict Collins has more.
An Israeli raid in the occupied West Bank yesterday. They killed 2 Palestinians, while several of their soldiers were injured. Israel is expanding its illegal settlements here. Now New Zealand has hit 2 senior Israeli government ministers with travel bans, calling them...
And not to stop this story too much already, interesting that TVNZ does identify their illegal settlements, because often the media will say settlements, but TVNZ's made the editorial decision, to correctly identify them as illegal settlements, which in of itself is interesting, but we'll keep going.
Extremists who encourage violence and undermine peace.
These are 2 individuals that we think are not helping the peace process, and certainly, most importantly, are encouraging extremist language and violence, and also the settlement of the West Bank, which is a long-standing position, as I've said, under successive governments, that is illegal under international law.
We've joined Australia, Canada, Norway and the United Kingdom in announcing the bans.
Today, we are making a decision also to stand against those who encourage abuses of human rights, also to stand against those who encourage violence against Palestinian people.
The Israeli government has hit back.
It is outrageous that elected representatives and members of the government are subjected to this kind of measures.
Israel says it will announce its response next week. The United States has also condemned our move.
It's a huge shock, and I have a feeling the United States will respond appropriately. And I'm hoping that it will be a strong condemnation of this action on the part of these nations that really we would like to think are our allies.
US State Secretary Marco Rubio called for the sanctions to be reversed.
These sanctions do not...
Interesting again. Marco Rubio that says these sanctions do not advance US-led efforts to achieve a ceasefire, bring all hostages home and end the war. Interesting that he's still kind of saying, what you guys are doing around the world, you're making us here in America look bad. Could you please stop? How US-centric is the response from them.
Two points there. I guess the US-led efforts are ship more bombs.
Yeah.
And then eventually peace will happen. And bring all the hostages home. How many times have the hostages been offered to come home? Like 4 times now?
Marilyn, can you speak to that?
It could have been achieved any number of times. I mean, every time we hear about a ceasefire, what we hear is that Hamas is willing to send the hostages home, but there has to be a real ceasefire. They have to really cease firing those American weapons and withdraw from Gaza. That could have been achieved any time.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has got about 30 seconds to go. Let's get to the end of it.
Advance US-led efforts to achieve a ceasefire, bring all hostages home, and end the war. We remind our partners not to forget who the real enemy is.
Christopher Luxon says we're not backing down.
No, we have a view that this is the right course of action for us.
New Zealand's increasingly calling out Israel's treatment of Palestinians.
Demanding really that Israel allows unfettered access of aid and humanitarian assistance to go into Gaza. You're in a position there where 1 out of 5 people are facing starvation, 94% of the hospitals are being destroyed.
Our government hoping mounting international pressure might reduce suffering on the ground.
For some people who missed the start of the clip, just for clarity, Britain, Australia, Canada, Norway, and us have all done this together. And very interesting words from the Prime Minister. I know we're probably going to talk about, if it's about inciting violence against Palestinians, why is anyone in the Israeli government not banned from, like where's Netanyahu's ban, etc., etc. Flip side of that, of course, is, a ban to New Zealand. It's obviously just symbolic. It's not really, oh, damn, I was going to go to Whangarei for my summer holiday. I guess I have to cancel now, says one of these two ministers. Marilyn, floor is yours, first of all, on this general overall conversation around the ban on these two ministers from Israel.
I would start by saying there's nothing in this rationale that could not have been said every day of the last 50 years. Israel is indeed, it has announced, I think, 22 new settlements that would obstruct a Palestinian state. It's true, could have been said any day since, 1967. I think it is significant, though, that this ban is in place during Trump's time.
Oh, yeah.
I recently caught up with a friend from Gaza, Scott Anderson, who became UNRWA's Gaza director through the first 15 months of this nightmare. And he left in January. It's astonishing how much worse it has become since January because of Trump. So it is a necessary step that some countries begin to draw some kind of line on Trump's watch. That's great. But these are elected representatives, and that is part of the problem. Israel's much vaunted ethnic democracy elected this government.
Yeah.
And I'm awfully tired of hearing people ask, who can govern Gaza? I'd like to know who can govern Israel when these are its elected representatives.
It's interesting you would say that, Marilyn, as well, because obviously one of the things that's thrown often back in the faces of the Palestinian as well, you guys elected Hamas, they leave out that it was 18 years ago and that half the population there wasn't even alive when they could have elected them. But what I hear you saying is we're like, well, you guys elected the Israeli government. I mean, you get what you elect. I'm interested, though. You say worse under Trump. Why has it gotten worse under Trump? Is it because Netanyahu's off leash?
I think so.
Right.
I mean, that the big change is Trump's inability to regard the world as anything but his stage. So whatever might have been done before, whatever coordination might have been working before, now there's not even the facade. Now these guys are completely off the leash, and look at what it is they're dreaming of. They're finally getting to live up to it. These people represent two strains of Jewish fascism. I think it's worth just taking one moment to say, we need to be, and Palestinians need to be allowed to say it that way. This is particular Jewish fascism. I and others, we spend a whole lot of time distinguishing Jewish from Zionist and Jewish from Israel, and those distinctions are real. But the fact is, and the Palestinian experience is, of a Jewish fascism, a Zionist, a power project that rides on the vehicle of Judaism. So it takes its own forms, and we need to not make that unsayable. Of these two ministers, cabinet ministers who've been sanctioned, Bezalel Smotrich, the Minister of Finance, he is of the school of religious Zionism, of Tzvi Yehuda Kook. They find cosmic significance in every square inch of what they call Greater Israel. Itamar Ben-Gvir is a follower of Meir Kahane, who established the Jewish Defense League and Kach. Kach was recognized by the states as a terrorist organization. It was banned from the Israeli parliament. Ben-Gvir was too extreme to be accepted as a teenager into the Israeli army, but now he's good enough to be a cabinet minister in its government. The reason why these things are worth saying is that neither of these ideologies has breaks. They are about the totality of greater Israel. They will not moderate themselves. They have to be stopped. So, okay, we've banned them from coming to New Zealand. They need to be banned from holding power.
Yeah. Interesting you had mentioned the word Smotridge or Smodridge. That's the name that Piers Morgan's been talking about a lot in the last few weeks, with his little pivot to, yes, it's a genocide. Yes, they're starving people. Now, we're not fans necessarily of his position in general because he has a lot of work to do. He actively had a conversation with someone the other day going, I don't see how you draw a distinction between Israelis and Jews. So it's like he's got a lot of work to do. But Piers Morgan, some of the other kind of podcast bros in America seem to be on they've finally reached their line. I mean, most of us reached our line literally years ago, but they've finally reached their line, and it seems to have come down to what looks pretty clear to be the starvation of Palestinians. And is it 1,000 days? Just completed the 1,000th day of Israel's stated policy of starvation.
100.
Oh, 100, sorry. 100th day. Yeah, of course. 1,000 would be 3 years. But that seems to be the tipping point for a lot of people. I mean, like some of the things they're saying about these two, as I said earlier, they could say about potentially all of Netanyahu's cabinet, including him. So it's interesting that they would draw a distinction between these two. But again, the world turning, the world that were allies now kind of going, look, we're still your allies, Israel, but you got to stop. Seems to be because of the starvation. Would you agree with that, Marilyn? That seems to be their line.
I do agree with that. It sounds so cynical, but I believe it is the pictures as well as the facts of starving children that finally crossed the line. And I believe they are crossing the line also within the Jewish community, parts of the Jewish community, and that, in a sense, allows others to speak, because there are many people who will not speak for fear of harming the Jewish community. But
right.
Today in the New York Times, Thomas Friedman, a longtime cheerleader of Israel, and they published this in the New York Times, he called Israel's actions in Gaza a widening moral stain. He said that Israel is on track to be regarded as an engine generating anti-Semitism. You know, the mask has well and truly fallen.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's this one here. The Israeli
Yes,
government
it's in that column.
I'm not subscribed, so I'll just go back one here. Israeli government is a danger to Jews everywhere. Yeah, it's and I think, I mean, like, even if you just think about what's happening in Gaza, it's like, I know this is very much oversimplified, but if I'm a 15-year-old and a country killed my mum and my dad and my brothers and my uncles, it's not going to engender love towards that country. It's going to breed many more potentially people to fight back. I mean, being blunt, it's driving people to Hamas, isn't it? Because of what have you got left if your whole family's dead? Hey, Chewie, you've been sitting there for a bit. Jump in, sir.
Yeah, I think that column is absolutely true. Like, as much as we can say, yep, cool, I understand that there's a difference between the Zionist regime of Israel, the decisions of its government and the IDF and that sort of thing, and that is their whole bag, and then you've got Jewish people as a whole everywhere else, and of course they can't be held responsible for the actions of a country that they're not in or part of their government. But that's an intelligent way to look at it, and we know that a lot of people can twist these things however they want for whatever aims they want, and there's a lot of people that have traditionally had a lot of prejudice towards the Jews, and this can just give them a tablecloth to cover over the views that they have always had. So that is what it is. It muddies that water. You know, it used to be that if someone said that they hated Jews, you could just go, you're a Nazi. Now it becomes even more complicated. So that's where that's coming from. And I think, getting back to Luxon's comment, as much as I want to go, well, it's a rear Luxon win. Well done. Somebody has told him to say that, and it is so late. And I think it is, he purely has been forced to make a decision because of the other countries that have done so. And it is literally like, these guys are going to do it. If we don't follow suit, it's going to stick out.
I think we gotta give him something though, because there would be one thing worse than him not being late to the party, and that would be not coming to the party at all. Still not being at the party.
So I'm willing to give him something. It is not an award. It is not a Nobel Peace Prize. It is not. It is nothing more than a half-sucked lollipop I found on the floor. But he can have that for accomplishing, clearing the lowest bar possible, and showing a shred of human decency. It is too long. We still have the Israeli ambassador and his staff here. We still have the Israeli embassy open. It is still there. The only reason to have him here and his embassy open is to summon him every day and go, have you stopped bombing kids yet? If not, why not?
Yeah.
And remember that those steps were ordered, in the advisory opinion, by the world's highest court. There would be no feat of heroism. We would simply be complying with the requirements of the conventions and treaties that the government has signed in our name.
There's something else that I've found really fascinating today. I'm the sadomasochist who's on Twitter, not Chewie. That's where I stay. And I had a look around today, and I had a look at all of the voices. Like, put it this way, Marilyn, parts of this conversation will end up on some of the Twitter feeds I'm about to mention tomorrow. They always do when we talk to you.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Juliet. Juliet Moses, the Jewish Council, Annie O'Brien, Dane Gerard, these people who the people may not know that last name very well, but who are pro-Israel in the face of somewhere between 50 and 200,000 deaths, still saying things like they have the right to defend themselves. And that group of people, and there's probably many more, are silent today. And I'm like, ooh, this is really interesting, because Luxon's their guy, or Peters is their guy. We've got a clip to play later on. We may or may not get to it. If we don't have time, we probably won't. But it's Karen Shaw from ACT talking about a two-state solution. Seymour is their guy. All of a sudden, their three guys are going sanctions on Israeli ministers in one voice. No, it didn't get anyone come out going, oh, right to defend. They all said it. Karen Shaw said it on the New Zealand Herald show this morning. And it's like, this is very interesting to see that group, that online group of Jewish influencers, if I can call them that, or certainly Zionist influencers, not Jewish influencers, Zionist influencers, are silent today. What is that telling us, if anything?
I found a few things very interesting today. The group who did speak today is called COMS, the Coalition of Ministers Supporting Israel. The last time they published a number, there were 65 Christian clergy publishing together as Christian Zionists, and they did speak. And it's worth just reflecting on those numbers. There are, I believe, 5 rabbis in New Zealand and 6 synagogues and 65 Christian Zionist clergy. So anyone who thinks that our government is forming Israel policy to satisfy 5,000 Jewish voters, I think they're wrong. So they spoke. The Jewish Council, distinctly quiet. I think they are not only twisting in the wind because of their political allegiances, I also think they are cornered within the Jewish community now. We understand that they are reviewing their constitution. I believe that some change is coming. Our institutions have been captured, and their silence is an ongoing disgrace. But there are still people within those institutions who have beating hearts, and I believe that their obedience is less and less reliable. The mask, once and for all, has fallen. The emperor, the empire, is just stark, raving naked. Imagine trying to tell a Jewish person that they must uphold some special Jewish connection with any community that conducts genocide and starves children. Imagine it. I feel an immediate and historic Jewish connection with a community that fights the great powers and fights the fascists from behind a wall against impossible odds just to survive. That's our history. So I think the Jewish Council is also quiet because they know, and hopefully because people are telling them, that their defense of this regime has become, it's more than threadbare. They cannot stretch it any further.
And I guess the proof is in the pudding. If they remain silent, then there's kind of no other conclusion to draw. I did want to check with you on one thing, Marilyn. You said 65 Christian Zionist clergies. Is that an official group? Because I've been involved in the Christian church, and there are far more Christian pastors or leaders who are Zionists than that. So what do you mean by, like, there'd be thousands in New Zealand, certainly hundreds, if not thousands. So what do you mean by 65 Christian Zionist clergy?
They, in one of their statements on Scoop, they had an explanation of comms. You know, you put further information about the group that is writing, and they use the number 65.
So they're people who are probably people who are associated with that group officially, sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. No, I was just checking because I was like, that sounds a bit low to me from my experiences. Yeah, Chewie, what else? There's something else we want to talk about to do with something that Stuff recently publicized or published. Chewie, what are your thoughts, sir?
I do want to. I want to notice that there's several mentions of, again, reiterating that the two-state solution is the solution. I find this funny that they can try and stuff the toothpaste back in the tube at this point, because that was the solution, and Israel went, okay, fair enough. We're going to keep on nibbling away at the parts of Palestine that we want and encouraging illegal settlers and that sort of thing. Do you think that this is a case where the international community is going to go, at some point, we need to start paying attention to how much you're lying to us? How much you are just saying, yes, we're not going to do any illegal settlements. Come on, guys, get those settlements up. We have been so hands-off on Israel for so many reasons. The Holocaust, of course, the Cold War, all of that. Israel's been able to do the slower genocide against the Palestinians for so many decades. Is this egregious overstepping of the line going to change how people are going, how governments are going to deal with Israel going forward? What are your thoughts on that?
You know, Mike Huckabee, Donald Trump's, I believe he's an evangelical Christian ambassador to Israel.
Yep.
He announced this week that America no longer supports the idea of a Palestinian independent state at all. He further stated that any Palestinian state will be carved out of, and I quote, a Muslim country, rather like Israel was carved out of Palestine. But so I think that the facade will fall, but not for the right reasons. You know, the right reasons would be some statements of reality. Someone years ago used the analogy, Israel continues to talk about dividing the pizza while they eat it. And that's what they've been doing, just consuming and rendering a contiguous state impossible. But it may, in fact, be Donald Trump, who finally openly jettisons that mantra. The reality has been for quite some time that there is effectively one state, because Israel is the power from the river to the sea. That's a statement of geography. There's a river and there's a sea. And Israel is the governing, the ruling authority under several different regimes.
Yeah.
So surely the only logical thing is to require a dignified conversation among the people who have a right to live in that space, to recognize the state, the nation of Palestine, and require a dialogue about how to govern that space. And as far as I'm concerned, whatever that dialogue produces, I'm all for it.
That from the river to the sea conversation is fascinating because it still comes up with Zionists or people who just don't quite understand everything, and so they take what they hear as gospel. And I always say to people who react to that, I say, what do you say when Netanyahu says it? They're like, what? What do you mean? Well, when Netanyahu says from the Jordan west, guess what the Jordan is? It's the river. Guess what's west? Well, that's the sea. So when he says he wants full control and have full military control from the Jordan west, he's saying that. No one seems to care about that, though. But when Chloe Swarbrick chants it, all of a sudden, you know, it's the end of modern civilization as we know it. It's just bizarre.
Edward Said wrote the best phrase, I think, to encapsulate this, and he wrote it in the 1970s. He said, the struggle of the Palestinians is a struggle of presence against interpretation. Palestinians are still asserting that they are here. They are surviving on their land. It's called Palestine. That is their struggle. Well, the Zionist struggle is one of interpretation and narrative and politics. That's what's still happening. And it is a plank of the original platform of Netanyahu's party, Likud, says, from the sea to the river is Israel.
But that's okay because that's the other way around, from the sea to the river. So that's not offensive at all. But if it's from the river to the sea, you know, it's because if going east, it's all spiritual.
It's a harder chant.
But going west is, you know, that's terrorism 101. We all know that. Let's have a look at this article that we were talking about earlier. You had some particular things you wanted to say about this, which we want to give you the space for. It was on Stuff, or The Post, officially it's the same company. Jew hatred is becoming acceptable where calls to globalize the Intifada lead. Can I say, first of all, Jew hatred is not becoming acceptable. Maybe I'm being a bit flippant here, but when people who have been, because of the Holocaust, the worst victims of the worst crimes, then start to play victim where there's no crime, it's just gross. Like, Jew hatred is not becoming acceptable. Anti-Semitism is still one of the most ugly things out there. But this is the article written by Rob Berg, and you wanted to talk to us a bit about the president of the Jewish National Fund New Zealand, because Stuff has posted this with no critical eye. Often if someone be a part of a lobby group or has a particular angle, at the end of an article it would say something about that group. It says nothing. So there's no clarification at all about what we're looking at. I mean, I don't know too much about it, but you brought it to our attention, Marilyn. The Jewish National Fund in New Zealand, or the Jewish National Fund that Stuff has publicised, platform, whatever the correct word is, without any kind of critical eye. What do you want to tell us about that?
I think it's a great example of the fact that we are being shown information without media doing the slightest due diligence. Here's what that produces. They call the Jewish National Fund a not-for-profit worldwide organization which fundraises for environmental and social welfare projects. The Jewish National Fund is a very old organization. It acquires land in Greater Israel for exclusive Jewish use. They are known for planting trees. That's their environmental activity, planting trees on ethnically cleansed Palestinian village land.
Right.
And today, through a number of shadowy fundraising channels, they are deeply implicated in the expansion of illegal settlements in the West Bank. How do they acquire land? Just ask Palestinians how they are dispossessed from their land. The Jewish National Fund has been stripped of its charitable status in Canada, and a group called Dawn, which was founded by the late Saudi Arabian journalist Jamal Khashoggi, they have filed a submission with the US Departments of State and Treasury seeking sanctions. The JNF has a $1.3 billion US portfolio of acquired land and assets. So they are an inextricable part of rendering the West Bank uninhabitable by its indigenous Palestinian people. All this takes one Google search. But their New Zealand president can write what he wrote in the knowledge that no one will do that one Google search. That is how uncritical our media are about the Zionist voices they platform.
Did you get in touch with Stuff at all? Did anyone reach out to Stuff about this to share this information?
I believe there is something in the works.
Because you would hope that if someone's, and look, I'll play ignorant here because you're educating us about this thing. If what you're saying is true, then you would expect if Stuff has been informed about that, there should be some kind of at least disclaimer on there. It also makes me think if what you're saying is true, again, just playing that line, then what they're saying, what Stuff is saying is we will platform anyone. No, we will platform anyone, but I don't think that's the philosophy they would agree to if you ask them straight out. So yeah, why this group? Why this guy? Yeah.
Yeah.
Chewie?
I noticed that our famous fraudster Damien Grant also had a column out, I think end of last week, trying to both sides the entire thing. So yeah, like the opinion space is just the Wild West. Like nobody puts these columns in their context. There's no postscripts. There's no preamble going, hey, look, this guy is the head of, whatever organization they're representing. Like Damien Grant, as an example, holds opinions on whatever takes his fancy. It's not put in the contents of the fact that he's a twice convicted fraudster that deals in financial fucking ripping here, and that his expertise in the Middle Eastern space may be a little bit lacking. It's a strange space when there is so much nuance, so much context, and so much history to get under your belt before you can actually form a coherent opinion on what's going on over there.
And the opinion goes out, and the correction, if there ever is one, doesn't circulate the same way.
Yeah, it's that idea about lies will go around the world before truth gets its pants on.
Yeah.
The correction, I mean, we don't really have the newspaper anymore. What we do, but the correction or the retraction is always on page 7 when the story's been on the front page. So, 100%.
How big was the fucking font size after October 7th that Hamas had gone and decapitated or raped babies, thrown children in ovens or smashed their heads against the wall? And that came out months later that it was all bullshit from one dude just making up lies. Now, that doesn't get the same font size. That doesn't get the same push through. There are still people out there that are going, well, the Palestinians brought this on themselves. I mean, the people that have that point of view are completely moral toddlers anyway. But they are still offering that based on the fact that I heard this horrible thing that happened, and I formed my decision on that day, and I'm not going to do anything to challenge that, and I'm not going to consider any proof that anybody brings me. This is the space that we operate in.
Yeah.
And this is the space in which Palestinians are trying to cope. And that's, I don't know how we're doing for time, but there is something else that I would like to say about that.
Sure, go for it.
Absolutely.
I guess to honor the 100th day of Israel's policy of starvation, I caught up with a friend from Gaza yesterday. She now lives here, and we agreed that I would tell this story. So I have confirmed the numbers. This friend sent $1,000 American to their family in Gaza to buy food for the coming month. So that's roughly 1,650 New Zealand dollars plus fees. In Gaza, the cash broker handed over only half of the money. The fees are now 50%.
Wow.
And a part of the reason for that is that Gaza is physically short of paper cash. One of the less understood facts of UNRWA is that UNRWA was integral to the liquidity in Gaza and to the actual movement of paper money. So there is now an additional problem obtaining cash. The price of 1 kilo of flour at the moment is 100 Israeli shekels. That is $47.42.
New Zealand dollars?
So, New Zealand dollars.
Okay.
So my friend's brother received 825 New Zealand dollars. With that, they purchased 10 kilos of flour and 20 small tins of tuna and of beans. That is the food to feed a family of 6 for the coming month.
Wow.
That's ground truth.
How do you wrap this up? I don't want to be flippant. Let's go, where to from here? Like, what's next, Marilyn? What do we need to do? I mean, I feel like one thing we need to do, me and Chewie, is we need to hear some more of these voices. So I think we need to talk to you some more about connecting us with other people to hear some more of these voices. But for the rest of us sitting idly by in our comfortable spaces with our big screen TVs and our tummies full of food, what do we do?
I think I've really been trying to understand how to be sustainably angry. Because, we die a little with this news.
Yeah.
But you can't just be angrier and angrier and angrier, you burn out. I think there are two sides to this coin. To be sustainably angry, you need to relentlessly focus on the real actions. You need to turn up. We need to turn up the pressure on this government to take the steps that you've already outlined. And we need to make it a one-term government. We do that by linking our issues and turning up for others. And we need to think about how to disrupt the real financial and diplomatic supports of this occupation. That's the positive side. But at the same time, we need to refuse to be misdirected, to have our energy wasted. And two of the most common ways that we are misdirected is by getting caught up with internet hate, robots, trolls. It becomes an exchange of insults. It has nothing to do with Palestine any longer. Might give you a moment of feeling like you have vented, but it's not real. And by falling into racialized explanations, you miss the real sources of financial and political support. So it's time to just relentlessly focus on what is real and refuse to be distracted. We need this to endure so that we can stand by Palestinians who are enduring it so differently.
Marilyn, thank you for coming on tonight. Thank you for receiving my text message today and jumping at it. There's something as well that's happening out there that not many people will be aware of. Maybe not you as well, Marilyn, but these stories don't, quote unquote, rate well. And one of the reasons they don't rate well is the big internet companies don't want them showing up in their algorithms. It makes me think, I don't care about it rating for us, like, ooh, what a big video, it doesn't matter. But it's one of those things as well that, the BHN whānau in this capacity needs to get these clips and stories and conversations out there. This will be uploaded at 6:30 a.m. tomorrow morning as an independent clip on YouTube and Facebook, and then it will be cut up into clips over the following few days. And I guess what I would like us being the BHN whānau to do right now is get these stories out there. The story about what it's costing to live in Gaza. And the algorithms don't like them because the algorithms hide this kind of information. It's very clear to see. It's unambiguous. So I hope that what we can do, Chewie and I, Marilyn, is have more voices on. And I hope what we can do, being the BHN whānau, is help get these stories out there more. So thanks for joining us tonight. Yeah, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure.
Marilyn.